Inside this box is Apple's most affordable iPhone, the iPhone 16e. And in my hands, I'm holding two iPhone SEs, the original design and the most recent 2022 refresh. That said, in today's video, I'll be answering three simple questions. Who's this phone for? How does it compare to the current lineup? And should you even buy it? Now, the way this mini video series works is I'll first be unboxing it, sharing my first impressions and the pros and cons. I'll then transfer all my information from my iPhone 16 Pro to the iPhone 16e and start using this as my everyday device. After I've had enough time to really get myself used to this phone, I'll drop what's called a day in the life, which is where I'll show real world tests with the camera and share my overall thoughts after that testing period. With that said, let's not waste any time and unbox this phone. I did pick this phone up in the white colorway, and this is the 128GB model. The Apple unboxing experience, no matter what device you pick, will always be superior to anything else. Now time for the moment of truth. Ooh! Okay, I like this design. It's super sleek and minimal. The camera is a lot bigger than I would expect, but considering there's only one, I'm a really big fan. Not to mention some other initial impressions, the bump is definitely not as big as my 16 Pro, which, I mean, obviously makes sense, but it's just something I'm just not used to. In the rest of the box, you will receive the best braided USB-C cable to ever exist, and unfortunately, no Apple stickers. With this device not following in the previous footsteps of being called the SE, a lot of people have asked, what does that E stand for? And I'll tell you what I think it stands for. Expensive. This device starts at $599. I'm gonna tell you straight up, there's no debating on this. That is not a budget price point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when the 2022 iPhone SE launched, it started at $399. When you first look at this device, you're probably thinking to yourself, this looks a lot similar to the older iPhones, and that's because it is. The 16e is basically the same body as the iPhone 14. Personally, when I watched the announcement video, I thought they were gonna say this phone would cost $499. So for it to be an extra $100 was definitely a big shock to me, and I think everyone else in this entire world. Let's first go ahead and set this phone up. All right, English. My 16 Pro did recognize this, so we're gonna go ahead and click continue so we can get this phone set up. And the best part about Apple is they make the switching ecosystem super seamless. You literally just scan this bubble of pixels and things just start transferring. And unlike the video where I went through the painful experience switching to the S25 Ultra, I pretty much can just swap my eSIMs through my phone without having to call AT&T or go into the physical store. I'm gonna set this up for me, put my password in. Let's go ahead and set up Face ID. This process is very, very quick. All right, and we're done. As I'm going through the setup process, it actually shows me how to utilize the visual intelligence button. Because this phone doesn't come equipped with the camera control button or the camera capture button that's on the iPhone 16 Pro, it is a little bit more confusing to use the visual intelligence button, and that was something I was curious on how that would actually work. When it comes to the pros and cons, there's a lot to unpack with this phone. First, we receive an action button, which is something I was super excited to see, and as much as people hated on this when this was originally launched, this is a feature and a physical button I actually use on a regular basis. I've binded mine to be a photo app as I love taking pictures, and I use it every single day. You can set it to something specific, create an elongated shortcut. There's really a lot you can do. So I'm happy to see that. Second, this is Apple's first ever device with their C1 modem. To simply put it, it's the most efficient modem Apple has ever created, which really helps with your service and helps you get better speeds, and no matter what location you're in. You won't actually notice a huge difference. This is just something that I'm kind of excited to see Apple finally pushing out, and I'm excited to see that they put it in their budget option. They'll do that to kind of guinea pig this new feature on the budget phone. Once they've kind of figured out the quirks and things they need to fix, they'll drop it with maybe a version 2 or just a more refined version 1 on the iPhone 17 in the fall. Third, we get an upgrade in RAM. The 2022 iPhone SE came with only 4GB of RAM, and this now comes with 8. Again, considering we have a 3-year difference, this should be something I shouldn't be excited about, but I'm glad is added. Fourth, we have Apple Intelligence. I do believe Apple is pushing this as a huge selling point, as Apple Intelligence was obviously one of the biggest push things in the iPhone 16 announcement last fall. I do believe this will push more people to actually purchase this phone, even though I don't feel like Apple Intelligence should be a main key selling point. Fifth, we have satellite compatibility. SOS messaging or satellite texting was something that was actually introduced last year, and it's something I was excited to see. If you're literally out in the middle of nowhere, maybe you're on a hike and there's barely any service, as long as your phone can connect to a satellite, you'll be able to send text messages. And lastly, you receive USB-C. A bonus pro that I think is subjective is I actually like the camera choice. I think for what this phone is, it makes sense to just have one camera, as every other generation has only had one camera. If it had two, I think it would confuse itself with the 16, and it definitely shouldn't have three, as that's Pro exclusive. Let's now talk about the cons of this device, as unfortunately, there's a lot. First, there is absolutely no MagSafe. When I was formulating this script for this YouTube video and doing side-by-side comparisons to the current 16 lineup, I was shocked to not see this. This is a feature that, correct me if I'm wrong, comes on the iPhone 12 mini. We have gone through the 13, 14, 15, and now 16, and you're telling me they're gonna release a budget phone that doesn't have this simple feature? You would think Apple would include this to push MagSafe accessory sales, but completely eliminating this, I mean, MagSafe is probably one of my most used features. I use it on both of my desks, as I don't like carrying around cords. I use it in the car to prop my phone up and play music. Why? Second, and to me this isn't as big of a deal, but there's no ultra wideband chip. If you don't know what that means, that allows you to precisely identify an AirTag, for example. So if you've seen those videos where people are walking around and it's pointing them to the direction of where their AirTag is, you don't have any support for that. For me, as somebody who tends to lose their items a lot of the time, and don't really like relying on playing the sound for 5 minutes and I'm still confused, that precise feature has always been super clutch for me. And I know it's rumored that they might be dropping an AirTag version 2 in the fall, so for this phone to not have that capability kind of makes me question it a little bit. This next con is something Apple just slipped into there and didn't tell you unless you read the fine print, and that's that this is not the same A18 chip as the iPhone 16. It actually has a 4-core GPU instead of a 5-core GPU. Now yes, you probably won't notice an actual difference if you do a side-by-side test. It might be very, very minimal, but when people say this is the same A18 chip, it's not really. Which I understand is still widely used, but to future-proof this phone a little bit, I thought they would have added it. I guess not. With the camera, with this being a single camera versus a 3-camera layout or a 2-camera layout, there's no ultra-wide camera and there's no macro photography. It's very bare bones, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's a con, it's just something that you need to keep in mind if you're considering this. You're also only getting a 60 Hz display, which I truly believe ProMotion's 120 Hz should come standard. I don't know why, considering that there are Android phones that are significantly less expensive than this that do come with 120 Hertz. Apple, please tell me why this is still a Pro exclusive option. Just make this standard, please. The reasoning behind it is for those that are already on the Pro, they're just gonna keep continuing to buy the Pro. So for people that are on the 16 or base model iPhones, they don't know anything different, so they don't know what that 120 Hertz display actually feels like. So to them, the 60 Hertz is fine, which that should not be the standard. The small change, and I'm not necessarily saying this is a con, is there's no camera control button. Not that anyone actually cares about that, just don't go thinking that since this was released after the 16, it's gonna come with a Pro feature. It does have a lower peak brightness, so keep that in mind if you're outside a lot and it tends to be super bright. There's also no dynamic island. We're still stuck on the notch. Something I was a little bit disappointed to see is there's only 2 color options, white and black. Even the older SE options had product red and even rose gold. Maybe I'm just a sucker for old color options. I wish they would bring back the XR or 5C color options on the budget phones. I just think they're super cool. They're bright, vibrant, and I just like how it really sets apart this phone in the 16 lineup. And lastly, this leads into my final thoughts. There are just better options for the price. Yesterday, after doing some research, you can find a refurbished iPhone 15 Pro. Unfortunately, it's not unlocked. It's carrier driven, so Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, for the same exact price. Keep in mind, with the 15 Pro, you're getting macro photography, a wide-angle lens, a better camera, a better battery life, a better display. I mean, the list goes on. This really just leads me to think, I don't know who this iPhone is even for. Even if you're coming from an old phone like an iPhone 11, you're downgrading your camera from 2 to 1. Who I think this could be for is if you're still on an XR, an iPhone X, or even the original SE from 2022. Going back, now that you know everything about this phone, let's answer the 3 simple questions. First, this phone is for people that don't care about MagSafe, don't necessarily care about their camera and having the feature of an ultra wide or even macro photography, as well as somebody who doesn't care for the dynamic island and the features that it offers. So if none of those apply to you, this is a great phone for you. Second, how does it compare to its former iPhone SE? When you compare it to a phone that's 3 years newer, for the price, it's hard to justify. And lastly, should you even buy this? Look, if you use this phone in the simplest way possible, I mean simplest way possible, Yes. I would just argue with you that if you are a simple Apple user, even still there are better phones for the price. I'm just really trying to figure out where this phone fits into the lineup. I can't tell if this release is to push you to buy the 16 or the 16 Pro, or if they actually want to sell this phone. Anyway, that's gonna go ahead and wrap up today's video. I'm really curious as to what your thoughts are, so make sure you leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to see this in a more real world test, make sure you're subscribed for the day in the life video. Thank you again for watching today's video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.